Assalamu alaikum. How are you all? I hope everybody is hale and hearty. In today's class, I'm going to start my explanation with one of the most fundamental concepts of phonology, and that is in the form of phoneme. That what do we actually mean by a phoneme? First and foremost, we need to be quite clear about this process, that how do we deal with the phoneme. Till then, we were trying to express something that was related and associated with the concept of articulation. We dealt with place and manner of articulation. We tried to deal with some of the most basic symbols that are associated with the English phonetics. Now, the symbols that we tried to understand and comprehend were actually phonemes. First and foremost, you need to be very much explicit about this phenomenon, that English phonemes have a distinct feature that most of the other phonemes in other languages lack. And what is it? First, now, this particular notion might be slightly confusing. It might perplex you at why the phonemes are different from English alphabets. It is one of the most, at the same time, anomalous situation and odd situations in English language, because the English alphabets never ever represent the sounds of English words, and that's the reason why foreign learners fail to cater the actual physical utterance slash articulation slash pronunciation of the English words. And the reason is that there is no correlation between a phoneme and alphabet as far as the English language is concerned. I'm not referring to other languages. In other languages, you can refer to the Urdu language, where the alphabets are called as haruf-e-tahajji. Now, all those haruf-e-tahajji, they represent the sounds of Urdu phonemes as well. But in English language, the alphabets are not indicators of the English phonemes. I can give you an example. For example, this CH. This CH in some words can be pronounced as ch, but in other words it can be pronounced as k. Like over here, the alphabetic pattern at the initial position of these two instances represent two different phonemes. Over here in chemistry, this CH is represented with K phoneme. It's not K, it's a phoneme K, the symbol K. And over here, this CH alphabetic pattern, it is representing another phoneme, and that is Ch. That's yet another phoneme. So you can see that how the alphabets and their sequence are not having any corresponding relationship with their respective phonemes. And that's the problem where people like us, people like you, the foreign learners, English as a foreign learner, fail to understand miserably that how alphabets represent a completely different sound. We have certain odd situations where the alphabets are silent. For example, yesterday this was also identified. Let's say we have a word. If you look at the alphabetic pattern, it is F-A-R-M. F-A-R-M. So when I pronounce this according to the standard British dialect, if you just slightly reflect back on my yesterday's lecture, you would understand that I gave you an example that R sound in the medial, even at the medial position, is not pronounced and it is dropped in received pronunciation. Now over here, the transcription would be like this. There is no ra in the phonemic classification, in the phonemic organization. So you can easily understand how this situation is creating quite an odd situation for the students. Now over here, my point to explain this whole idea was that you people are not supposed to refer to alphabets to understand the English sounds. So you need to put sounds and alphabets distinct from each other, isolated from each other, separate from each other. So let's explain, what do we mean by this term phoneme? What is a phoneme actually? A phoneme is a blueprint of a sound in the mind. A blueprint, what do we mean by this? A kind of a mental picture within the mind. For example, every speaker of a language knows that what is the phoneme, what is the sound at the initial position, at the second, third, fourth, and at the final position of a specific word in his or her respective language. For example, I know the phonemes of my language. Any other speaker from any other language would be able to understand. He will have an abstract mental visual of that phoneme at any of the positions. So we can say that phoneme is a blueprint of a sound in the mind. So second basic concept of a phoneme is that it is an abstract unit. Absolutely. We all know the phonemic pattern of our languages. We all know whenever we utter a word, whenever we articulate a sound, we know that where we have to put that specific phoneme, at the initial position or at the medial position or at the final position. That depends on the sequencing of that pattern, phonemic pattern I'm talking about at the moment. So same goes for the English language. The English speakers have a clear idea, explicit notion of their phonemic pattern, that where to put the initial, medial and final sound or phoneme. We also call phoneme speech sounds. Now this might give you some help, some assistance with regard to the concept of a phoneme, that what do we mean by a phoneme actually. Now this is a second concept. Third, what is a phoneme? Minimal distinct unit. Now this might be slightly creating perplexity in your mind. That what do we mean by minimal distinct unit? By minimal distinct unit we mean that it cannot be further segmented. Segmented means divided, or we can simply call it an indivisible unit. Now that's something you need to understand. We cannot divide a phoneme. We can divide a morpheme. We can divide a word. We can divide a sentence. We can go for the segmentation of a whole piece of a text in the form of discourse. But phonemes are indivisible. It means that you cannot divide them. What do we mean by distinct? Distinct means that every phoneme is different from another phoneme. Per is different from b. Per is different from B sound. B is different from T, and T is different from S, and S is different from Z sound. So every unit, every sound segment is different from the other sound. That's the third very important aspect of a phoneme. Let's venture on the fourth one. It functions contrastively. What do we mean by this? It means that one phoneme or replacing one phoneme means, or it would end in the change of meaning of a word. What do we mean by this? Let's say we have a word pat. What do we have? Word pat. If you look at the form, we have a word which is the combination of three alphabets, P, A, T. We can transcribe it like this: P, sheep sound, and then T. So, what I said, that it functions contrastively. It means by replacing one phoneme, I can change the meaning of this word. How? If I replace this P with, let's say, B, and rest of the form remains the same like this, I have changed only one phoneme. Functions contrastively. It means replacing one phoneme with the other would mean, or would end up in the meaning change altogether. This would change the meaning of a word. So you can easily understand now that how an important unit this phoneme is. It's an extremely important segment of language. It's not an ordinary thing to assume, because changing one phoneme would be changing the meaning of a word completely. So that's something you need to understand about a phoneme. So that was a brief account of a phoneme. In the next session, we would venture on other topics related to the idea of a phoneme. Till then, I would like you all to subscribe my channel, follow it, and keep on watching my videos to stay updated. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you very much.